I said, I'm not sure everybody will make their way back. Sometimes whenever people get booted, they get really frustrated and then they don't manage to make it back. But to not waste your time, I do want to kind of keep going on what we were discussing about it. And we were kind of blending all these questions that I had specifically together, like why is it important, how have you used it, and how can technology support it? We've kind of been blending all of those together. Does anyone else have ways that you've used technology to support your formative assessment in your classroom? Have any of you used the clicker things?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay, they do sometimes have clickers that you can use, or if you have devices in your classroom, you can set up an app that has a clicker on it, and they can answer questions that way if they're old enough. The nice thing you might like, Madeline, about Kahoot with your age group is if you read them the answers, then they have to pick the shape that corresponds it or the color that corresponds with it. They have the answers blocked out that way for the students to select.
Okay.
So that's another way that little kids have worked with that. Although I don't know first graders. I've not done Kahoot with first graders before.
It'll be a modeling process.
I'm sure. So in your college classes, in your bachelor's and in the master's classes you've been working with, what kind of formative assessments have you worked with there? Any?
I think in the past I've done like journal writing, but I don't know that that's all that, I don't know, helpful.
Okay.
I've also used a kid blog with my students in the computer lab where they, like I write something and then they respond to it and then they can see what each other says and stuff. And that's just kind of a neat way to, it could just be one question, and it's a neat way to see how everybody responds to it.
Mm-hmm. What about peer assessment? Do you feel that that's formative assessment?
Sure.
Yeah. If it's structured and well done?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sometimes that becomes difficult because it ends up being, it looks good, or unless there's a rubric that they can specifically pick out things that are not working or that are wrong or that you're missing big chunks of. Sometimes that's difficult. In a face-to-face classroom, I think it's a lot easier to use formative assessment techniques. I think in a virtual classroom, it's a lot harder to do it with like this. Those are some ways that I've seen that work. With the technology then that you're working with this week, have you guys used these tools before? Are you familiar with them?
I have never used them, and I really like the Coggle thing, the concept map. I thought that was really neat, and it was easy to use. I mean, I did put in my reflection that I got frustrated a few times with the formatting and stuff like that, but overall, I really liked it.
They used to have some really nice ones that were totally free, and then they moved them to do some, and then you pay for extra services.
Right.
And then in the last 6 months, they have changed some of the really nice ones to, you can get like a 2-week free trial, which does you nothing because you learn how to use the tool and then you can't use it in your classroom.
Right.
Or they've made them pay for more than one map, and the same kind of thing works there. So I know Coggle wasn't perfect, but it was better than the other ones, and it is completely free.
Right.
So with your stuff last week, what did you guys end up using for it? Did you use Coggle, or did you use another source? Or
I use Google Drawings,
Mm-hmm.
but familiar with it, so it was easier.
Yeah, do you just use Google Draw, or do you use Draw.io? It's a plugin that goes with it.
Ooh, just the regular.
Yeah. Draw.io lets you have more of a concept mapping flowcharty kind of experience. But you can, it's like an extension or a plugin you can drop in with Google Draw, and it makes it do some decent things.
It's called Draw what?
Draw.io is what I think it is. Unless
Yep.
they changed that since I installed that one.
Well, I've never even used Google Draw, so I don't even know what that is.
Have you used your Google Drive at all?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a drawing page that goes with it as well that you can use basic shapes, and that you can structure. A lot of times people will structure charts or worksheets or handouts that are going home on there, or have students. Some of them have, and with the 3D printers and that some of the schools have, they've dropped SketchUp in with that. You can embed that into your Google Draw, and that adds another layer of functionality to it.
Neat.
But it's just a basic kind of drawing, like they used to have Pages, not Apple Pages, but they used to have, one of the Mac products used to have a really nice drawing program, but they've done away with that one now. So it's kind of nice to have something you can just put out shapes and that on. A lot of times people use PowerPoint too, but it's not collaborative.
Right.
Like Google Slides or something like that to do concept maps that are collaborative with it.
Yeah, I've done Google Slides.
Hey, Caitlin's great at dropping things in there. You guys are giving me a nice little chat window of resources to make sure everybody gets forwarded to. What about you, Greg? What did you end up using for yours last week?
I used Coglit. I found it actually really easy to use. It was great that you could embed videos and pictures really easily. I find that the biggest thing is with the programs we use is just the ease of learning it right away and not having to mess around with it too much. When I find that when it's easy to use, you're going to find that you're going to use it a lot more because you're very familiar with it.
Yeah. I tried to find ones that were, number one, free, number two, that did everything I wanted them to do for you guys, and number three, that didn't get blocked on a lot of school sites, because that's also an issue. But yeah, and I appreciate you guys giving me resources too, because everything's always changing, and now that I'm not in the classroom anymore, I'm finding there's a lot of really cool things coming up that I'm not finding unless somebody tells me. So I appreciate that a lot. Especially the resource board you guys are building. It's starting to get pretty massive. If you've taken a look at that Padlet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. By the way, if you want bonus points, if you missed a session or you want bonus points, dropping anything on there, make sure your name's on it, or you email me with your name, and I'll add those into your grade at the end of it, in case you need the points or whatever. So that's one way people can make up on it missing one of these. Although most of you have made them now, so you're good. This week you're doing the evaluation and assessment. I'm suggesting the it's Zaption that works better now. The EduCanon used to be really fantastic, and they just changed the name on it. So that's another one that's on there, but the name is now changed. Yeah, they changed the name. I think last week or 2 weeks ago, I got an email saying that they have a new name for EduCanon. Which is why I made Zaption the other one. But them being free and embedding pretty nicely with everything worked pretty well for the video quizzes. And I really like that some of them you can download the data, because as you probably know, being in the classroom, everything is now data driven. And having anything that will easily collect the data for you saves you time and effort. And some of these like Kahoot and Zaption, and another one that's a writing one is Curriculate that embeds nicely. All of those will drop your data out for you, whatever the students answered, into a nice spreadsheet, and that allows you then to have some data to play with or to look at and analyze. If you've not really gotten into the work this week, Rubistar is pretty simple to use. I would like you to customize it for whatever assignment you're using it for. Some of the categories are a little flaky. That if you can just pare it down and make it really aim at what you're looking for, that's great. The survey or form, I don't care what you use as long as you have access to it. I do not want to pay to look at your work. So if you have an assessment tool that works with video or something like that that's a pay-for site, I would appreciate it if you let me have your login to go in as you to see it. But otherwise, like last semester, I did not make that very clear, and I ended up having about 4 or 5 that I ended up emailing the company and asking for a one-day access to look at, and that took a while. Storify, if you've not used it, that's the next week one. And people think that it has a pretty good learning curve on it. I dropped in an example of it, what all it can do, and YouTube has some really great videos on how to do Storify. It is pretty simple once you get your concept, and it's a really nice way to kind of curate materials for your students or for a training or something you want to send out to your family. This is the stuff we did all year long. Here are the links, whatever. I've been using it with those of you that were logged in on time. We've been talking. I got tapped to lead a Twitter chat, and I'm not really a Twitter person, but I'm trying really hard this year. And one of the things we've been doing with these Twitter chats, which you're welcome to join, EdTech, I think, is every Monday night, right around this time. It's called EdTech, #EdTech Chat. There's some other ones that work as well that are really interesting ways to see how people are thinking about different things and resources. But we're using Storify then to grab all the tweets that go with that hashtag and to save them, because Twitter only saves them for you for so long that it's easy to access. So that's other ways. If you have your students using a tool like that, for those of you that are upper levels, or if you're in professional development that's using it, the one you're using next week, the Storify, is a really great resource then for archiving that kind of information or archiving things that are online and curating information. Okay, so do you have any questions about formative assessment? Okay. Do you have any questions about the technology that you're using this week, or any trouble submitting things from last week? I know that I didn't even look at the stuff that was turned in yesterday because of the Blackboard being out and the issues that caused for some people. So nothing is late this week. Now that you know. All right. If there's any questions or you want some personal help, if you just want to hang on afterwards. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys jumping with me from Zoom to Zoom and bearing with me as I'm trying to get a handle on this technology. And I will see you either in class or next week.
Thank you. Sorry about my dog.
Oh, your dog's cute. I love big dogs. And we got a cat too now joining us.
Good. I'm not the only pet person.
No. I don't have any pets out here. All of mine are back in Pennsylvania. So, and then anybody else have any other comments or anything you want to discuss or talk about? Okay, so if you want to get out of here, for those of you that haven't been on it, there's an end meeting at the bottom on the big screen. There's an end meeting button somewhere. You can click on that and leave at your convenience. Otherwise, I typically hang out for about another half an hour until it kicks me out again to see if people need some help. So thank you guys for all showing up and for bearing with me while we had to jump around in that. So have a good evening.